Today, we need to talk about JungKook's song on his album Golden and what happened. We also need to talk about an Italian radio host having some very bad things to say about BTS, and then we have a statement given by 50/50. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave. Decide hater or not, make sure to subscribe with the notification bell on. Grab bids with Blue and hey Spling Mug merch, and let's go. We need to talk about 50/50 and what is going on here. If you're not familiar with the situation, it's believed 50/50 is taking legal action on their management. At first I thought it was confusing and most people thought that they were taking legal action on their label, but then people thought it was weird since they're still putting out music. But there's some real claims being made about the management breaking their contract. This is weird and odd because a lot of people have sided with the management over whatever 50/50 is saying. The argument online by fans go as far as people saying that 50 is literally such a small group, and yet once their demands aren't being made, suddenly they call for legal action, and the fact of the matter is most demands or even nice things aren't going to be met until the artist becomes a big star. But these are just the bad times that every artist is just expected to go through. For example, BTS would not be anywhere they are now if it weren't for their pre-debut days and how much it likely humbled them. Other sources online have alleged much worse things that the management might have done to 50/50. Now, I don't know the truth behind that, so just understand there's always two sides to a coin and take everything with a grain of salt, and a lot of what I am basing my video essay on is Korean to English translation, so there's always errors with that. Recently a statement was put out where 50/50 was supposed to meet with investors. This was apparently 2 weeks before the girls were supposed to go on vacation, and one of them was supposed to go through surgery, and the meeting was apparently very last minute. And throughout the statement there's a lot of complaints about how this was such a sudden meeting with investors and that the CEO was inflating 50/50's capabilities to the investors. And so basically how the statement read pissed off a lot of people. The girls were believed to be sounding like they were spoiled, and people were leaving comments like, what exactly is the big deal with doing a meeting 2 weeks before vacation? As many people who work normal 9-to-5 jobs would literally be working right up to the last day before vacation. And then others were commenting saying that they didn't understand 50's complaint about the CEO inflating their abilities to investors, because isn't that just what you do when you're pitching? Apparently one of the girls even attempted to correct the CEO when the CEO inflated a bunch of things. This to me is just a sign of immaturity, or possibly just also a sign of 50 not maybe trusting their team, as they feel if they don't correct the CEO, bad things will happen. I don't know. The immaturity is just not really understanding how important these meetings are. The money that is generated from investors is going into the next album and going into the promotion of the girls. So it'll be what would make them famous, because otherwise the label and management has nothing to use to produce their album. And the worst case scenario is if after meeting with these investors, the investors are like, these girls are not as good as we thought. I think people are upset as K-pop used to be filled with people who were much more humble and not scared to put in the work. And by work, I don't mean spending large amounts of hours in the studio. That is work an artist has to do regardless. The work that no one wants to do is the stuff leading up to that. The hours spent in a crummy dorm or small apartment trying to make ends meet, creating music and working really hard and not getting paid, or no one even listening to it, pitching and getting rejected, or dealing with really abusive and terrible people. These things are terrible to have to go through, and of course to an extent, if it's so bad, call the police. But these are things, if not that bad, that really test the artist and let the audience know that the artist actually loves what they do, because why go through all that if you don't? And the bottom line is the industry is not as glamorous as everyone thinks it is, and if you're going into it for just glamour, then leave, because it won't be that way until years later. And so people think it's unfair for a new artist to make any demands when older K-pop generations have never even opened their mouths for anything. I can totally understand where this comes from, which is what I just explained. But I remain pretty neutral on this and very curious to see if the newer generation of K-pop is going to start right off the bat listening to specific demands that a rookie group would have never done in the past. Also, putting a lot of those darker times is what is really going to make really good music, and music that most of us can relate to. JungKook just released his Golden album tracklist, and fans were absolutely shocked in a good way. People were very happy to see the amount of collaborations, the writers, and of course the titles, which seemed like great songs. Right before the tracklist was released, ARMYs had some comments and suggestions on what they would like to see on the tracklist. I say suggestions because people were open and saying that they want it, but obviously this would be too late for suggestions. But people were hoping for a song that JungKook released a long time ago called Decalcomania. The song was released as a 1-minute song that wasn't finished, and it was entirely in English. The song is an absolutely beautiful ballad, and I can totally see why fans are hoping to hear it in its entirety and maybe completely produced. The lyrics to the song are very interesting, and the lyrics talk about how Jungkook doesn't feel connected to the person he sees on screen and to the person we all see of him on screen. He sees a person who looks very happy and is perfect all the time. However, he doesn't feel like he is perfect all the time, or that it's the real him. When he released this, it was interesting because then there were rumors that during a live stream that happened much later, he talked about not ever really releasing that song fully because he felt like the lyrics don't really relate to him anymore. And he felt that armies do actually know him now. Now, this is a rumor, and I don't know if he ever actually said that, but it's not surprising because oftentimes when an artist puts out an unfinished song like that, there usually isn't an intent to finish it, and it usually gets scrapped. Now, when the track list actually dropped, we got to see that the song was indeed not on the list, and many of the fans were still in denial and saying that it will happen. However, it probably won't drop just because it's not a song that reflects him anymore. And if he does drop it, armies are going to think that he hates them, and then all the headlines will say that, and then Jungkook will cry, everyone hates me. There's definitely already a lot of haters, so Jungkook definitely does not need that. There's an Italian radio station that apparently had a lot to say about Jungkook recently. Keep in mind, these comments and things that the host said are being translated from Italian to English. Again, with those things like the 50-50 thing, there could be translation errors, cultural misunderstandings, things like that. So what happened? People were accusing this Italian radio station of playing the song 3D by Jungkook, and then afterwards talking about how the name BTS isn't a disease, but just an out-of-shape, tired boy band, and then said that this is the reason Jungkook left the group, and then also went on to call Jungkook an ex-member of BTS. Of course, Jungkook is not an ex-member and has made it very clear that he wants to join BTS again. However, of course, someone who does not do their research wouldn't know that. A lot of the international radio stations do often like to attack or come for BTS, saying they're girly and all that stuff. A lot of that narrative has shifted after seeing how buff Jungkook is, and then also seeing him sing about sex, which now makes him a man and not a boy or a girl, because now he very obviously has a penis. But anyway, I think the odd thing about what was said was calling BTS out of shape. It simply isn't factually true. It's not even an opinion you can have. It's just a false statement. Two of the members are literally in the military, so they're buff. RM is super buff now. Jimin has been having abs. Maybe the only people without abs are Suga and V, but I think V has abs, and we just haven't seen Suga's. It's one thing to say, oh, they look like girls. Okay, well, that's an opinion, and you can't really disprove that opinion someone else might have, because that's what they think a girl looks like. But out of shape, BTS actually factually and scientifically are in shape, and it can be measured. Fans have opted to spam the radio station with messages to let them know how wrong they are, and also to let them know how rude these comments are. Unfortunately, this is something that every celebrity has to face. Every single celebrity will get comments from a radio or TV host or comedian that will make a joke about a celebrity, and it will usually be one in poor taste. One of the things BTS could never do, which is the Comedy Central roast, where everyone roasts a celebrity because fans will be so mad. I do think it's interesting that the radio carried the narrative that Jungkook has left or is leaving BTS, because that's definitely not a good thing to tell everyone, since Jungkook will be back. And others were worried if the radio station had some inside information that Jungkook will leave, and I will say no, because the station is likely going by this idea that every time an idol does something solo, it means that they've left the band or group, and it's not the reality of BTS. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks for this lovely comment right here. Love you, bye.